What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. This is my 2025 residential zero-turn mower comparison. I'm going to be comparing the mowers that you can find at Lowe's, Home Depot, and Tractor Supply in the price range from $3,000 to $4,000 only. We're going to be comparing John Deere, Cub Cadet, Areins, Bad Boy, and Toro models. So I'm going to have some very valuable information for you guys. I'm going to show you how just a price of $200 difference can get you a better engine, deck, transmission, and in some cases, all three. So do me a favor, subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and let's get started. So before I show you the spec comparisons, let's start with Cub Cadet, and I'm going to also show you what mowers I'm going to recommend you avoid, starting with this Cub Cadet IP 42-inch, 21.5 horsepower, coming in at right at $3,000. Now you may be wondering what that IP stands for. That stands for IntelliPower. And if you look at this, it says, oh, it gives you 18% more power, has a nice lightning bolt on the engine, making you think it's probably a hybrid or something. Well, basically all it is fuel injection, all right? And it's throttle by wire. So I'm not a big fan of that, guys, but it does have nice big caster wheels on the front for being such a entry-level price. I do like Cub Cadet's frame. I do like how they have a foot plate here where you can remove that bolt and get full, easy access to the top of the deck. The deck isn't anything special. It's a 13 gauge stamped deck, but one thing I do like about Cub Cadet's decks is they have like some air pockets around the spindles, and that allows for easier air lift to lift that grass up, give you a nice good cut, but it also allows dirt, water, and debris from standing right by those spindles. Nothing here special to see, very similar to the stamped decks you'll see on other mowers, but I do like the quality of these frames. You got a 2-inch by 2-inch tubular steel frame, nice welds, a little rubber bumper there on the front for an entry level, such a low price unit. Got a nice foot pedal there, deck lift foot pedal. Control arms aren't anything all that special, you know, run of the mill, just like everything else, but I do like the adjustments on those. Basic seat, the seat's only an 18-inch high back seat, and you got the little hole there to allow the water to escape. Now, as you fold this seat up, and of course they've skimped out on just the simple things like a cable to keep the seat from hitting the frame. I hate it when these mowers do that. Just put a simple cable on there to keep that seat from hitting the frame, tearing up your seat. You got an AMG battery there, 210 cold cranking amp battery. And here is that IntelliPower 547cc engine. It's not made, who knows who it's made from. I've tried to look up where this engine was made. It's probably Chinese, but it is what it is. I'm not going to recommend this mower, but I do like the frame. I like the way Cub Cadet does their frames on these. But as far as this IntelliPower, I think that's just a sales tactic-y way of saying this engine is fuel injected. And another thing I don't like about these mowers, it has no hour meter, no fuel gauge, and no fenders. It does have a nice big deck height adjustment cam right there. I do like the frames, like I said, but now the important thing you need to consider are the transmissions, and all of these models we're going to be covering are hydro gear, and these are entry-level EZT 2200 non-serviceable transmissions. Now, non-serviceable means it's not made to ever be serviced, but if you really wanted to, you could, but it's not going to be easy. They do have a cap there on the top where you can fill them. 20 by 8 by 8 rear tires. I do love the way the deck linkages on these are. They're pretty high quality. But again, I don't like this throttle by wire. I do not like that. You're just asking for problems. A mechanical cable is better, easier to, if it does break, it's going to be simple fix. You don't have a choke lever with this. You don't need it for the EFI motors, and again right there you can see where you're going to end up tearing up your seat if you let it fall against that frame right there. Sure, you could easily put your own little cable on there, but I just don't see why they don't do that. But overall, this unit has more red flags than a Chinese parade. Let's move on to one that you might want to consider. The Cub Cadet Ultima ZT1 42-inch coming in at $32.99. These mowers do provide some pretty good value for the dollar, and you'll notice later on that the sister mower, the Craftsman, uses a round tubing right there instead of that 2-inch square. But all of these start off, they come with a nice rubber mat on the foot plate. They also come with LED lights. Here's the same deck as before on the other unit, the stamped 13 gauge 42-inch deck on this model. And as we come around to the back here, we'll take a look at these linkages again. I like the way they do the frame, very, very nice. I don't like that they don't have a fender. We'll get to more of that in a moment. But you notice this big bar across the top of this Kawasaki engine that we'll get to in a moment. They don't put that on the Chinese or whatever, whoever makes that other mower or engine. They don't put that bar on there. And it also comes with standard with a hitch, where this one does not come with the hitch, that one we looked at. So let's move on along. Let's start with this seat. Again, this is a 20-inch high back seat, much nicer seat, but again, they failed to put a cable to keep from tearing up that seat. And you got the absorbent glass mat battery right here. I don't like these integrated little cables for the parking brake, but they're such a pain to replace when they break, and they will eventually break. Anyway, let's move on along to the engine here. And at that price point, it's pretty good that you're getting a Kawasaki 21.5 horsepower engine. I do like how they have the protection for the carburetor up top, but not right here. If something were to come into right there, you can knock that carburetor and cause you some issues. So I wish there was something in between there to give that exhaust and that carburetor some more protection. And again, we have the Hydro Gear EZT 2200 transmissions. And in case you don't know, this is the transmission release to put the transmission in neutral. But notice how they have the nice, convenient oil drain tube in that hole in the frame, so you can drain that oil, not make a mess. A lot of other units don't do that. For seat suspension, it has these hard plastic little bouncy things here. They give a little bit, but the springs are actually better in my opinion. And again, this one has the 20-inch high back seat. Pretty nice seat as opposed to that 18-inch seat that we saw on that 42 IP model. That only has an 18-inch seat and it's all black. So it's going to be super hot when you get on it. Notice these simple grips, and on this one it has much nicer grip handles that don't wick the water like those other ones do. And one other thing I like to point out that Cub Cadet does well is they actually wrap the hoses and cables away from these tires. Just simple stuff like that to keep those tires from tearing up the cables. Alright guys, I like to write everything down, that way it makes it really easy to compare. That way when I'm on the website, it's just easy to do a really quick comparison amongst all the other ones and all the brands. And I want to show you something that I found out. So the first one that we're going to consider, you know, not including this one right here, that one with that IntelliPower, the $32.99 one, like I said, you get $100 more for just $100 more. You upgrade to an 11 gauge deck that's fabricated, and then for another $100 you can get the ZT1 46-inch, and the only difference is everything stays the same. Tires, brakes, gas tank, everything stays the same all the way up into the $4,000 range is what we're doing in this video. The only thing that changes is the deck size. Now, one thing I noticed when I was looking on the website, they showed a picture of a stamped deck when you're looking at this one on the Cub Cadet website, but it is a fabricated deck now. So you're going from a 42-inch to a 46-inch for just another $100, stepping up from the 42 to the 46. And then on the website, they make it pretty easy compared to other brands, where you can just see I have it here priced high to low. And real quick, I'm just going to show you what I'm talking about. So right here, click on this one, go to details, and you can see that's a stamped deck that they're showing on the Cub Cadet website right here. But if you go over to the Home Depot website, they're showing it with the new fabricated deck. So the Cub Cadet website must be showing old photos. So it is a stamped deck now. So if you're looking at the Cub Cadet website for the $34.99 model, the 46-inch deck is showing the stamped deck, but it is, even though it says that it's got the Aeroforce fabricated deck, it is fabricated despite the photo they have on their website. But like I said, everything is staying the same. The transmissions, the gas tank, the battery, the seat, frame, tire size, warranty, and they all come standard with the LED lights, the convenient oil drain, full access top with the mat on the foot plate, all the way up into the one that we're considering for this video. Keep in mind, we're only going up to $4,000. And what's cool about this one, the ZT1 54P, right at $4,000, it has front caster suspension, but it's got all this, and it's got the all the other good stuff. Now, what I don't like about it, again, the no rear fenders, where it's going to just sit there and run and get slop stuff all over your console, your instrument panel, your key switch, and your hour meter. I hate that. That's just so silly not to have some type of protection to keep stuff for that rear tire slinging stuff on top of your instrument panel. But the most impressive thing about the Cub Cadets, in my opinion, is the 3-year unlimited hours. You got on the unit, and you got a frame limited lifetime and a deck limited lifetime warranty. And one other thing I want to point out on the Cub Cadet website is, one, they just make it really easy to see what you're getting for the different price points once you set it from low to high. But you'll notice on this one, they're the exact same price, and this one's a smaller deck. You got the 50-inch deck versus the 54-inch deck. But right here you have the Kohler engine on the with the larger deck. You've got the Kohler engine instead of the Kawasaki, so that's the reason the price difference. Undisputed, or arguably, maybe, I guess you would say, everyone really prefers the Kawasaki, then the Kohler, then the Briggs & Stratton on these residential zero-turn mowers. So now let's move over to John Deere, which makes it, in typical John Deere fashion, something that should be super simple. They like to complicate it. We're not going to consider the electric ones because they're out of the price range for this video. So we got the Z320R, the Z320M, and then you move over here, we got the 4 more models. So we have a total of 6 different mowers, yet when you first look and you're out there looking at everything, they look so identical that unless you don't really know what these numbers mean or the letters, it can be very confusing. So I'm going to simplify it for you really quick. All right, starting from the least expensive and working our way up to the most expensive of this $3,000 to $4,000 range, a lot of this stuff is going to be the same throughout, like the fuel tank, the battery, the frame, the front casters, and the warranty, and hour meter, and no tools for the top deck access. But for starting off, the Z315E, we got $32.99. You have a Briggs & Stratton 20 horsepower engine. It has a 12 gauge stamped deck, 42-inch 12 gauge stamped deck. You got the Hydro Gear 2200s, which gives a speed of 7 miles per hour forward, 3.5 miles per hour in reverse, and these are rated for 13-degree slopes. Here's what happens when all you do is increase $200, you get the Z320M, and think of the E and the M and the R as like a trim level. So for $200 more, you upgrade to the Kawasaki 21.5 horsepower engine, and then you also upgrade the seat from the 18-inch low back to the 20-inch high back seat. And then you also get the rear hitch standard and the front bumper. And then for another $200, you move up to the Z320R, which happens to be the same price as a Z325E. So what's the difference? So over here, just think of this one as being kind of it has more bells and whistles, all right? We have the Kawasaki 21.5 horsepower engine. You still have the 42-inch deck, 12-gauge deck, just like you do on the M320M. Same transmission. You get the nicer seat. Still the smaller tires, but you get all the bells and whistles. The front bumper, LED lights, rubber mat on the foot plate, rear hitch, and covered storage. Think of this one as the same price, but more of a workhorse. The workhorse is the Z325E. Has a bigger engine, but it's a Briggs & Stratton. And then you get the bigger deck, the 10 gauge, either in 48 inches or 54 inches, and it's 3 blades. The 54-inch deck is going to cost you another $100 on top of that. But you also get a heavier duty version of the 2200, the Hydro Gear 2200. It's just a slighter, heavier duty version. But you get the cheap seat, you get the 18-inch low back seat. However, you do get the bigger tires because you have a bigger deck, heavier deck. No bells and whistles, no bumper, no LED lights, no rubber mat or anything like that. Now we're moving to the Z330M at $37.99. You get the bigger Kawasaki engine, 23 horsepower Kawasaki. We got the 10 gauge deck in either 48 inches or 54 inches. You get the EZT-D, the heavier version of the 2200. You get the nicer seat, but without armrest. The armrests are optional. You get the bigger tires, you get the rear bumper standard. The rear hitch is standard, and the front bumper is standard equipment. Now with the Z330R, that's the top of the line model coming in at right at $4,000. You get the nicer Kawasaki engine. You get the high back seat with armrest, the larger tires, and all the bells and whistles. The front bumper, LED lights, rubber mat on the foot plate, rear hitch, and covered storage. So hopefully that helps you understand the differences when you're seeing all these John Deeres out on the floor. So now, knowing all that information, we know easily what this mower has on it as far as engine and everything. This $32.99, we know that's the Z315E. And I'll tell you what, guys, John Deere has drastically improved these Z300 series over the last generation. It was one of the worst mowers in my opinion before, and now it's probably a very heavy contender. What I don't like on these decks is how they accumulate dirt and leaves like that. There's no escape for it like on the Cub Cadet mowers, and it just accumulates stuff and dirt and moisture and eventually starts to rust right there. So make sure you clean that stuff out. And I like this tool-free, easy access to the deck. And this, one thing I don't like about this, as opposed to like the Toro, is it's only a 3-point mounting system for the deck. And these handles right here I'm not a fan of because they absorb water and they just hold water. I'm not a big fan of that. I like kind of more of a rubbery type grip on those control arms. But here's that low seat, that 18-inch low back seat, as opposed to that 20-inch seat, more premium seat as you see back there. And this little hole in there will still get clogged up with water. You know, like the ones on Bad Boy and the other, like Cub Cadet, they have a much larger hole to allow that debris and water to escape. Now here's that Briggs & Stratton. Now these engines are kind of okay, but they have this plastic intake that I cannot stand, and they will crack and develop vacuum leaks, and they're really not the easiest to replace. I hate replacing those. That's my biggest problem with these Briggs & Stratton engines. 3-gallon fuel tank right here on the left side, and you can see now we have lots of coverage there for our fender not getting slop all over our control panel. 18 by 8.5 by 8 tires. That's the smaller size. Now what they do good on this John Deere is look at that better coverage as far as protection. Even though it's thin sheet metal, it'll stop anything from hitting that engine. They have this integrated e-brake on them. They're kind of all doing that now. I'm not a big fan of that, but it is what it is. I like how they put the service interval right here on the bottom of the seat, give you the routing for the traction belt there and all your schedule, your service intervals. And there's that 300 cold cranking amp John Deere battery. If you don't see the John Deere battery on there, someone's probably stolen the battery and they've replaced it. But there's the little aluminum deck height adjustment cam, and look at this little flimsy, these little zip ties are so flimsy, Harbor Freight would be jealous. But anyway, moving on along, you got a nice, on these Briggs, you got a nice tube there to drain the oil. And I do like how they've started putting this little plastic cap or screen there that's easily, you can pop it out and blow some air, clean all that debris away from those top fans of the hydros. But this, I don't like how the tire is so close to that cable. That's ridiculous. Something eventually is going to grab that cable, a stick or something, so just zip tie that, get it away from that tire. They should do that from the factory, but hey, you know, right over here, not so much going to grab that tire, or be grabbed by that tire, I should say. Got the translucent tank there, 3-gallon tank, so there's no fuel gauge. And again, on these, you got the 2200 Hydro Gear EZTC hydros. There's the drive belt, and I've made several videos on these guys, so check out my past videos. Pretty nice machine compared to previous models, but I don't like how they don't put something to keep that seat from just falling and hitting the front foot plate there. And this deck chute it's okay. I like it when they're nice and flexible. That way if you hit like a fence post or something, it doesn't tear up the fence post. Bad Boy has the best deck chute, I think, in my opinion, on that. They're very flexible. Now let's go ahead and take a look at a higher end unit right over here. Let's take a look at this Z320M. So again, just $200 more and you're getting the Kawasaki engine on this one. You're getting the 20-inch high back seat, and that rear hitch will come standard, as well as that rubber bumper that you see on the front right there. But pretty much everything else is the same. Much nicer seat, like I said, as opposed to this one on the 315E and the other E models. Let's go ahead and take a look at this 21.5 horsepower Kawasaki. And Kawasaki puts on a nice little tube to drain the oil out as well, but it's on the right side. I think it's definitely worth the extra $200 to get that Kawasaki engine, that nicer seat, and you're also going to get the rear hitch. It comes standard on this one. But again, same deck, 12 gauge stamp, 42-inch deck, and we have the smaller drive tires, the 18 by 8.5, 8, as opposed to this one has the larger. Let's take a look at that. This is the 330M. So we know right now we're going to have the 23 horsepower Kawasaki engine. And this one's going to have the 2800 Hydro Gear transmissions, as well as the larger decks. You can get the 48-inch or the 54-inch 10-gauge deck. So a drastic improvement. And you also have these reinforcements on the side with that, looks like some half-inch, I'm sorry, probably 5/8 solid round bar. Still stamped deck, so there's no place for the water or anything to escape. They just rest on top of those aluminum housing spindles. And this one, it doesn't come with the LED lights. That is an accessory you can get, but it does come standard with the hitch and that front bumper. And also the larger tires, the 20-inch by 10/8 tires. Also, you got that 20-inch high back seat, but it has no armrest. And on the Kawasaki engines, you're going to get the separate choke, and this one was actually feeling a little bit binding up. Didn't feel as it should be. Probably needed a little bit of adjustment there. There's the deck height adjustment cam, and there's the storage compartment where you can get that cover. That's when they're talking about the covered storage. You just put a lid on the top of that. All right, guys, next up, let's take a look at Bad Boy. And I'm going to tell you one thing that excels over all the other mowers with the Bad Boys, and that is the deck. They have a 7-gauge deck, which is the thickest out of all of them in this price range. And it's a fabricated deck, but it goes south from there. Look at those skinny little caster wheels for $3,600. You know, it does have a good, easy, toolless access to the deck. I've always liked working on these. They're super easy to work on. It always just seems like you have plenty of room. And again, that deck is just killer. And they ride really good. Not this particular model, though. The commercial ones do. Nice, thick frame. You know, for this price point, though, the deck is really the only thing that I like about it, and they have that grip there where you can step on this one. They don't tell you not to step on it. You can. They actually make it for you to step on that deck to get onto the unit. And they also have these this is adjust the, I guess basically you'd say the sensitivity to the hydros. You can't really adjust these arms, and they don't have the rubber that holds the water or soaks up the water. You do have a fuel gauge there. That's nice, as opposed to the other models. There are some things about them that I like. It's got those little tiny tires on them, but again, the deck is pretty much the best thing going for the Bad Boys. They're super thick, very high quality deck, and again, I like kind of just how they're laid out, but look at this engine. This is where it pretty much gets eliminated right off the rip for me. You got the single cylinder Briggs & Stratton at $3,600. You've got to be joking. They do have a nice protection, but it's so flimsy. Look, it's just like 2 bolts on this side, 2 bolts on the other side, and a little hole there for the exhaust on other units. But let's move on along. They do put a strap, you know, at least they put a strap where your seat doesn't go and hit the freaking foot plate and damage the seat. And the wiring is, you know, it's okay. It's kind of sloppy. This is just a lock cable, so just ignore that. But they do have a wet battery. There's the choke on that side, on the left side, and here's your throttle and control panel. But I like how you can get to the deck, but, you know, just all these cables, you know, just seem to be just kind of sloppy in my opinion. It just seems to be, the cables seem a little sloppy. Easy to work on. Again, easy to work on. There's this battery. That's a interstate battery, I believe. But man, I like how they put they call it the pump belt or a drive belt, and they do have a hole there for when you change that oil filter. At least there's a hole in the frame for the oil to drain out of. And one thing I always hate about these is the transmission release. You have to pull this little pin out here, pull it out, and then re-put that clip pin back in there to hold it in place. That's just kind of annoying compared to all the other models have a better way of doing that. And here we have the 2200s, again, just the entry level rinky-dink hydros for $3,600. You know, it's just like the John Deere and the Toro, spoiler alert, are going to beat this one. You know, so I wouldn't recommend this one. I would say that, let's look at how small these tires are. I mean, what are they, 8 by 8.5, 10? But it does have a fender where you're not going to get everything all over your control panel like the Cub Cadet. No, nothing special. Now they do have this nice, I'm telling you, they hit a home run with the deck, and I like the chute. See how malleable, flexible real rubbery that chute is. That way it doesn't beat up your bushes or kill your, small trees or whatever. Big nice hole there for all the water to just escape. That's a nice thing, feature too about them. But just that small engine, the mediocre hydros for this price point, and really no other frills. They do have the nice foot lift just like all the other ones. The deck is pretty much the only thing going for these. Here's a look underneath them. 7-gauge deck. But if you're needing a 42-inch deck that's super heavy duty, this might be your only route to go out of all the other ones, considering the 42-inch decks. But if you want a larger deck and you want to consider the bad boy, right at the tip of our, or at the top of our comparison video of this one, at $4,000 you can get this Magnum, and it's got much better grips, wider front caster tires. See how much wider they are compared to these little skinny ones there. Yeah, $4,000, it's still not the best option, guys, of this comparison. It's got the Kohler engine, still the 2200 hydro gears. You can, nice deck again, like I said, you can step on it, got the fuel gauge. But here's the Kohler engine. Some people don't like those tires. They might tear up the ground a little bit more than you will like. But this Magnum, it's okay. And again, got a nicer, for the Kohler, you got a nicer way to drain the oil here. And this is what I don't like, when you have wire so close to the tire, mud, moisture, everything's going to get into those connections there. And at least they do put a strip on for the seat. There's a little fuse box there, nice and covered. So that's a good job. There are good things about these that I like. High quality springs there for the seat, as opposed to the little plastic ones for the, there's a fuel shutoff valve. I like that they put that on there, stock. And also another hole there for the, oil. When you remove that oil filter, at least the oil is going to not run completely all over the frame like you'll see in other models, like the Toro we'll have shown here later on. But yeah, just for a 54-inch deck that's so heavy, they really need to put the 2800 transmissions on this. This is a no recommendation for me. I do like I said, the deck, the grips are better on this one, but you just lose it with that price point. The hydros being so small, I'm just not going to recommend the bad boy this year. Now, this may change in the higher price points, but on this price point, in my opinion, these are not the way to go. All right, guys, so next up, let's take a look at Areins. Now, we're going to take a look at a 42-inch deck. These priced at $33.99, and I'm not going to recommend them this year, even though in the past, when I specifically have paired these up against specific mowers of the exact same price point, Areins has won, but not going to win this time, where we're comparing them against other models in the same price point of $3,000 to $4,000. I'm not going to recommend this one. You got those skinny front casters. What I do like about these is that it's an 11-gauge deck. However, you don't get easy access to the top. You can't remove this easily. They do have edge protection along here welded. It's a nice deck, but you may be wondering, why do I need to be concerned with getting access to the top of the deck? Well, you need to be able to keep it clean, remove everything like dirt and debris, change the belt, check your pulleys, your idlers. It's going to make life a lot easier, guys. This is the 42-inch deck, and actually the 34-inch deck is the same price. And again, the same seat. They're probably all made in the same factory. I do like the grips. They're okay. They don't hold the water like the other ones. But you can kind of adjust them a little bit better as far as like where you want them. Now going along here, it's got a small little 2-gallon fuel tank, small tires, 8.5 bat 8s. Now they do have, a nice guard there protecting that Briggs & Stratton engine. with that plastic intake. That's one reason I'm gonna give a thumbs down this year. It's only a 20 horsepower Briggs & Stratton. You know, the plating is okay, it's nothing special. Let's go ahead and take a look at underneath the seat here. Nothing holding the seat from hitting the frame up there. And notice these knobs right there. A lot of the other ones, actually, you know what? I didn't realize it stopped right there. So it's got a metal stop, so that's good. But these knobs right here are how you slide the seat forward and back. So that's kind of annoying. Fuse right there. Got the small little AGM battery. Also known as dry. They'll call them dry. Toro calls it dry. Same thing as the AGM. But I'm not going to recommend these because, you know, I just don't like this engine. However, it does have a good way to like drain the oil, but it's going to go just right on top of your transmission. But you could, it's easy to pour oil into these 2200s, but again, these aren't serviceable. They're not meant to ever be easily changed. They think that it's going to last the life of the unit. And one other thing I don't like about these is how these tires are getting really, really close to like things like that little clip pin. Just, it's a ton of just little minor details, but at least it does have, over the Cub Cadet, a better way to protect stuff from getting slung onto your control panel. So those Edge models are kind of compact, but they also have the IKON models, which in my opinion are better. So let's take a look at that one. You got the nice wide front casters, just like the other ones. You got lights on this one. This one's priced at $38.99. But look at this right here. Right on the showroom floor, wires for the lights, touching the caster. Now I know this is just anecdotal evidence. Not all of them are gonna be like that. And notice this tiny little plate on the front to give you access to the top of the deck. It's super small and it's just very clumsy and just doesn't really give you enough access like it should. Nice entry point there on the front so you can get onto that operator station. I really do like the control arms. I like the grips on these control arms, and I like how you can adjust the control arms. You also have a nice seat with some armrest, and there's also a USB port right there. So it's pretty nice, probably a very comfortable ride. Translucent tank there on the front, but at least we do have the Kawasaki engine, this is the 23 horsepower engine with an 11 gauge deck. They do put a cable here, a little Mickey Mouse cable at best, to keep the seat from hitting the frame, but it's better than nothing, honestly. Now this one does have a 3.5 gallon fuel tank as opposed to that Edge. And another thing I failed to mention on the Edge, those only come with a 2-year 150 hour warranty, where this IKON comes with a 3-year 300 hour warranty. So for a price difference of $500 comparing to that Edge that we just looked at, that 42-inch Edge model, you're getting a much better unit here. And we got almost good coverage to protect this carburetor. You could still come in and hit that hose, but at least the metal part of the intake right there is protected. Nice heat shield, all that for the muffler. Hydro gear, again, 2200s. And you do have a nice drain hose there. There's the hydro release, but a nice drain hose for the oil. But it's stuff like this fuel line hose on the left side just dangling there, and these wires here, probably going to get something touched by the tire or sticks going to come up there. Just that type of stuff just annoys me, that they should just zip tie it and tuck them in a little bit better. And just for kicks, here's another look at that little Edge, a 34-inch with a stamped deck. I should do a video just comparing these little compact ones, because sometimes these things are the right tool for the job, but we'll do that in another video. Now guys, let's move on to Toro, and much like John Deere, they're very confusing on how they list their mowers on all the specs and everything, so I've made it easy for you, but I'm going to go ahead and just show you real quick this little 3299 model 77401. It's got a stamped deck, a 13 gauge stamped 42-inch deck. There's your fuel gauge with that translucent tank. Control arms, nothing really special, but at least you can adjust them. Well, I don't know, can you adjust them? But I'll tell you one thing that always annoys me with these is these little cheap screws that go onto the plastic covers for those spindles. And this one is kind of going to be a disappointment with a 22 horsepower Briggs & Stratton single cylinder. I recommend always staying away from the single cylinders, but since it's priced at $32.99, I figured I'd go ahead and show it. And those small little tires, you got a 16-inch, very small 16-inch seat. And one thing I hate about Toros is just the sloppy wiring. Every one of them's got sloppy wiring, but in many cases nothing that a good bag of zip ties won't fix, and a little bit of effort on your end. But it's just silly in my opinion. And this one actually has the ZT100 hydros, 3-gallon fuel tank. Nothing really special about the deck, but they do have, you know, smart speed technology, and you know, the step through front, tool-free oil change, you know, standard hitch on the back. I do like, I mean, they're known for having a quality unit, but unless you're needing a little, you know, I don't know, for the 42-inch deck at $32.99, I wouldn't recommend the Toro, this one. But when we go take a look at these other models like the Toro Max, for example, now we're in a whole different ball game. This one is a much better unit, easy access to the top of the deck, reinforced here as you can see. This specific model is the Toro Timecutter Max 77504 at $3,999. So at the top of our food chain in this comparison, it's got a nice seat right here. I love they call it a gaming seat. This has got a 10 gauge fabricated deck. I'll do a comparison spec sheet here in just a moment, but I just want to show you guys all some details here. You got a nice fender there. There's the label on the tag there, deck wash. Go around here, you got the battery on the left rear corner. I do like that, but instantly you're going to see stuff that you don't like. Just real quick, all these wires right here, so close to the tire. And then look right here, your fuse is right there. I mean, that's ridiculous. Again, buy a bag of zip ties when you buy one of these. They are good units, but you're going to have to buy a bag of zip ties to fix this wiring mess that they should do in the factory. But going along, they got really good coverage as far as that rear guard, got that rear hitch there. But that coverage for the engine is excellent, absolutely excellent. And I like the side right here. It's metal. This is metal, not plastic. That's nice. Love that. Love it, love it, love it. Paint quality on all these units is great. I don't really care about the color, guys. When I'm talking about quality of the paint, I'm talking about rust prevention, corrosion prevention. So that's what we're looking at. Nice made, nice unit. So this one's got a 5-gallon fuel tank, and it's got the HG 2200, so it's like a heavier duty version of the 2200 hydros. And again, 10 gauge fabricated deck. Very nice mower. One of the top contenders, if not going to be one of the winners of this year's comparison. I don't like that about the seat, but they call this a gaming seat. They're very comfortable. I love the way these units can be worked on. However, when it comes to an oil change, this is where they really drop the ball. This is ridiculous. Where's that oil going to go? You're going to have to put a tube on that and run it down, and I hate these valves. I've actually done a video on those little plastic valves. They always leak eventually. I hate them, hate them, hate them. This is where it gets an F in this category as far as oil change convenience. Like, it's ridiculous. And the wiring. But everything else, they do a great job. Just like you just can't have the best of everything. And again, there's a 77504. But real quick, I want to show you this Black Havoc edition at $3,999. It has kind of like a crinkle finish compared to like a smooth finish. Now the smooth finish is going to clean up nicer like on these bad boys, but the crinkle finish will kind of not show scratches as well, but they're kind of harder to keep clean. But so that's just cosmetics, but they're probably both very durable. And you got that bracing on the top of this 10 gauge deck. Very nice belt guide chart there for easy reference. Going to help you out when you go to change that belt. Toolless access to the top of that deck as opposed to previous models. I don't like the plastic covers on the spindles. I like how the spindle covers on John Deere just flip up as opposed to trying to wiggle out this little clip pin that you'll eventually lose and everything. It's just kind of a nuisance. You got the handles here. Nothing really special about those, but you do have a good way to adjust them. And also the fenders, keeping stuff from getting up on your control panel and out of your gas cap area. But they don't hit a home run everywhere. No protection against that seat. No stop to keep that seat from tearing up. That nice 19-inch gaming seat. And of course, as all of them, they always seem to have these hoses just loose and just right up against the tire. And that yellow coat, that yellow is that's the security cable from the store, but this is a gas hose right here. I just don't see why they don't at least cap these freaking fuses off. I mean, it's going to get water in there. I just don't get it. I do like how they put the battery. I love the battery location, but it just seems like they just, you know, drop the ball. It's like, hey, let's hit a home run everywhere else, but then just all the little details, just, you know, screw it. Let's just not worry about it. But I do love the engine protection on the back. Got that nice Kawasaki, 23 horsepower Kawasaki that you find on the higher end prices of our comparison here. And like I mentioned before, just like John Deere, they can make it very confusing on what model means what. So let me go ahead and show you kind of a side-by-side comparison of the specs of what you're getting for the price. Okay guys, we kind of get a disappointing start with the Toro Timecutters at the very beginning of the $3,000 range. At $32.99, we got a Briggs & Stratton 13 gauge stamp deck, but we only have a Hydro Gear 2100 transmission, okay, and a 16-inch seat. If you spend $200 more, you get a 10 gauge 42-inch deck, which is much better. We're still stuck with the Briggs & Stratton engine, which I know a lot of you guys don't like. I wouldn't lose any sleep over having a Briggs & Stratton as long as you're maintaining it properly. But yes, Kawasaki is notably better. Fuel tank, 3 gallon. We got the dry 230 cold cranking amp battery, 16-inch seat. But man, it's just that 2100 transmission at that price range right there in the middle. I don't like that at all. So, but when we get over here to the Toro Timecutter Max at basically $3,700, still stuck with the Briggs & Stratton engine. You're getting a 50-inch deck. Now, you may not want a 50-inch deck. So that's where I'm kind of would go more with like a John Deere or something else, maybe even the Cub Cadet for the smaller units. One thing I do like, we finally get up to the 2200 transmissions, 5 gallon fuel tank. I do like that. I like that a lot. And I do love, probably the favorite seat is this Toro 19-inch gaming seat over the John Deere 20-inch seat. We finally get up to some bigger tires with this unit, with the 77505. And all of these come with a 3-year 300-hour warranty. So now we're at, when we get up to $38,999, I'm sorry, $38,999, 23 horsepower Kawasaki now, finally. 10 gauge fabricated 50-inch deck. We still got the 2200s, where at this point you could already be getting into the 2800 hydros on the John Deere. John Deere's got that 3-gallon fuel tank, but the Toro's got the 5-gallon fuel tank. And again, John Deere's got a wet battery, where we got the longer lasting, however, lower cold cranking amp battery. So, you know, it's kind of hit or miss there. Got the nice seat there, bigger tires. And then at the top of our comparison video, we got a 77504 as an example. Those Havocs are similar. But I will mention on this one real quick, you got the heavy duty, it's a heavier duty version of the 2200 on those transmissions, just like you're going to get on this one. Right there at $4,000, we got the Kawasaki heavier duty version of the 2200. Everything's pretty much the same. 3-year, 300-hour warranty. All right, guys, so that's going to wrap it up for this video. I hope this was valuable information for you. And for my opinion, if I were to pick one with a 50-inch deck or larger, I'm definitely going to go with Toro. I'm going to take a bag of zip ties with me to tie up all those loose ends, but with that deck and just everything else, the quality of it, just overall, it's just a no-brainer for me. You got that good engine. The Kawasaki got that amazing deck. They're all pretty much using the same hydros, and the John Deere and Toro are using the higher level hydros on the upper end of that scale, that price range. Now, if I was stuck with just wanting a 42-inch deck, if that's all I was wanting to stick with, just a 42-inch deck, I probably would go with, it would be a really hard toss-up between the Cub Cadet and the John Deere, honestly. I like how you can get the Kawasaki engine on the Cub Cadets, and you're getting that fabricated deck with the supposed lifetime limited warranty on the deck. That goes a long way. Plus you're getting the lights, the rubber mat, all those bells and whistles, pretty much standard across all of the $3,000 to $4,000 price range on the Cub Cadet, and it had a better warranty than the John Deere. So yeah, I'd probably go with the Cub Cadet over the John Deere, even though I hate that it doesn't have a fender on it. I would probably do something to, because I know stuff is going to sling up on that control panel and get water and dirt into your key switch. It's just going to be a mess. But that's the only really biggest gripe on that one that I would see. So let me know what you think. Do you have one of those? Have you had that problem? What mowers do you guys have? What do you want me to cover next? I know there's lots of brands like Steel, Ferris, Exmark, Hustler, other ones that I need to go do. And a lot of times these change over the years. And one thing I'll add that a lot of people I see in the comments where they think, you know, MTD and everything, that's just nothing but pure junk. Stanley Black & Decker bought out MTD about 4 years ago. They owned about 20%, and then they bought the remaining 80%, I believe in 2021. And they're actually pretty decent stuff. You know, they also own DeWalt, Hustler, all kinds of very, high-end, very quality stuff. So I've seen the quality of Cub Cadet go down, and then it came back up. And it's also with like Craftsman tools. I've seen that where Craftsman used to be back in the day really, considered good, and then it went really south, and now I think it's good bang for the buck, basically. Not the best, but a good value for the dollar. Similar to DeWalt tools as well. So anyway, do me a favor, guys, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. I'll have more